Hello students, you're welcome to Module 2. In our previous class, you were taught about the example of parental responsibility vis-a-vis Eli, Samuel, and Asa. In this present class, we're going to be dealing with the consequences of obedience. What is the consequence when we obey? What will be the end result? How are we going to be rewarded? And our first primary story or narrative that we're going to look into is the story of Joseph. After Joseph was captured, or after Joseph was sold by his brother for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelite trader, he was also traded to Potiphar. Potiphar was the commander of the king's of the palace of the army that was stationed, or the guard that was stationed in the palace. And so Potiphar took Joseph, or bought Joseph as a slave. But Potiphar, when he discovered that Joseph was very diligent, decided to make Joseph the head servant in his house, to oversee all the chores that happens in his house, because Joseph was so committed, he was so diligent with record, with people, with activity, that he got everybody, he got the interest of everybody. And it also happened that the wife of Potiphar started making passes on Joseph. She wanted Joseph to sleep with her, but Joseph refused. On a particular day, when she discovered that her husband was not around, she decided to entice Joseph into a wrong position. And so she wanted to force herself on Joseph, but Joseph took off. Unfortunately for Joseph, he left his garment with her. And so when the husband came back, she reported to the husband that Joseph wanted to rape her. The husband was so angry that he threw Joseph into the maximum prison in the palace. But in the prison, Joseph was not discouraged. He grew to be the head prisoner also again, because he was diligent and he found favor within the wardens of the prison. And so from prison, Joseph became the prime minister of Egypt because he obeyed the Lord. Another example of obedience that we're going to be looking into is the one of David. When David was anointed as king over Israel, he became a persona non grata to King Saul, because King Saul was the reigning king. And so Saul wanted to kill David, but David fled and went to the hill of Ikali. When he got there, he hid in the wilderness there. But King Saul did not let him be. King Saul, when he got news from his own spies that David was in a particular location, he mobilized his soldiers to go and look for David to kill. So in the night, when they got to the cave in Ziph, they decided to sleep. While they were sleeping, David, having heard about King Saul's purpose, sneaked into the camp of King Saul while he was sleeping. He came there with Abishai, one of his able men. When they got to where the king was sleeping, because all of them were sleeping, even the one that's supposed to guard the king, when they got there, Abishai asked for permission to kill King Saul. But David said, no, you cannot kill him, because he's the Lord's anointed. And so the only thing that they did was to take the spear that lay beside Saul, the spear and his water jar, and went out to the other side. When he got to the other side, he shouted for Abner, and he questioned Abner why he was not good in his job. He rebuked him why he could not protect the king. So much so that he now told the king about how he was able to sneak into his camp and took his water jar. When the king heard this, he was touched. And so he came out and reconciled with David. Another of the same story is the story of the three Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When they got to Babylon, they separated themselves because they were children of God. They became so obedient, not to the laws or rudiment of the Babylonian Empire, but to God. It started with the food. It started with the company that they keep. But on a particular day, King Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king of Babylon, made a decree. And before he made the decree, he made a golden statue that everybody, whenever they hear the sound of the pipe, the sound of the music, they should bow down. But Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego refused to bow down. And so they were reported to the king. When the news got to the king, they arrested them and brought them before the king, who asked them again and told them to listen to his instruction and obey him now, or else they'll be thrown into the furnace of fire. But the three Hebrew boys were so bold that they said they dared the king by saying that even if their God refused to help them or deliver them, they will still not bow. And so Nebuchadnezzar became so furious, became so angry, that he told his servant to increase the furnace 7 times. And so they did. And so he instructed his men to bundle the 3 Hebrew boys and throw them into the fire. And so much so that the men that threw the 3 Hebrew boys into the fire were slain by the flame of the fire. But surprisingly, after a while, when King Nebuchadnezzar looked into the furnace, he discovered that there were 4 persons inside the furnace. And he discovered that the 4th person was like the Son of God. And so he now shouted that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego should come out from the furnace. And when they came out, he discovered that they were all hot. Nothing happened to them. Their clothes were not burnt. Their skins were not burnt. When they saw this, the king acclaimed that the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego should be revered throughout his kingdom. This is some of the narrative that is tailored after consequence for obedience. Whenever we obey God, there's always a blessing. But when we disobey God, there's always a repercussion. In other words, a curse. And so as good children, as good students, we should learn to be obedient to our parents, to our teachers, to authorities, and to our seniors. I'll leave you now until we meet again in the next class. Have a beautiful day.